What's up YouTube, and welcome back to Homebrew Subaru. In this episode I'm going to give you an update on the 2011 Impreza. So what's up everyone? I have been working away in the garage here for the last week on and off. A few hours here, a few hours there. I've got a lot of parts cleaned up and a lot of parts installed. So I've made a bunch of short clips like I kind of did in that last video. Not the last video, but the one before. And I'm gonna let them play through, and then we're gonna talk about where I'm at right now and what should be coming up for next week. So I have the mess that was in front of the car pretty cleaned up, like good enough for now anyway. And I've set up my work table that I like to use as a bench when this one's being used as a shelf. So I've started cleaning up the heads. I've got this one pretty much done. The only thing I'm probably gonna do is maybe swirl the valves a little bit and clean them up some more. Started on this one, and really they're fairly clean. So even giving them like a little wash or rinse, not going to be too big of a deal. Just maybe flush some fresh oil through there. Then I'll go ahead and give the covers a clean up just to identify any leaks if there is any after I get back together. Same with these edges along the bottom of the gasket, head gaskets. I just want to make sure everything's dry as a bone when this thing's running. I've got the cylinder heads cleaned up really good, and just give them a brake cleaning before they go on. The covers cleaned up, got most of the oil off of them that I could. I'm going on to the oil pan, and I found number 3 bearing. So there's part of it. And here's the rest of it. Holy fuck. So yeah, after all the oil's drained out, you can see how much bearing material's left in there. It's a lot of material. This thing had been running for quite a while with a knock and definitely broke down into the oil. But I'm planning on reusing this, so I've got to get it as clean as possible. I've got the oil pan all cleaned up. Now I'm going to suggest at this point, if you're in the situation that I am, I highly recommend just going ahead and replacing the pan. Trying to get out all the metal that was in there is difficult. It takes time. It's a lot of brake cleaning, a lot of compressed air to ensure that everything is out of there. The same with the oil pickup, just because of the design of it with that screen in there is pinched in place. So you can imagine how far back material can get back in here, and shining a light, spraying, and keep on working away. I actually had to dig a couple little sections with my pick to loosen them up, but I finally got everything out of it. So I mean, I would just, if I were you in this situation, or if it was a customer's vehicle I was working on, I would go ahead and replace this stuff. Because I'm probably going to drive this car for a little bit and change the oil early. Likely that anything minuscule that's left inside anywhere will be flushed out, within 1,000 kilometers or so. The outside of the pan is in really good shape. I just did a nice job cleaning it up really good, getting all the oil and dirt off of it. But there was a couple little spots of rust starting to bleed through. So I decided to clean that up. And I'm just gonna hit it with some paint, and then the oil pan will be ready to be reused. So I found some more treasures in the bottom of the oil pan. You can see those chunks of bearing are quite large. And for the rod to start, hammering them through and drop them into the pan, that thing was clacking around for a while. So I'm just coming out here today to start cleaning up the deck surfaces of the block and go ahead and get the heads torqued on. And I've probably been out here maybe 10 minutes. I got a knock at the door, and a bunch of the gaskets have arrived. So valve cover gaskets, water pump gasket, the crossover O-ring, spark plugs, timing belt, intake, a couple of filters. I'm really only waiting on one of the timing idlers. So I can't get the timing together, but I should be able to get pretty much everything else together. So I'm getting this side cleaned up. I just wanted to show you how I go ahead and polish up the pistons. You can see how easy this thing turns over. It's so nice. And all I'm using to clean these is just a right angle die grinder with the 3M roll-lock bristle disc on the end. And you can just see how quickly it'll chew through some of this carbon. You get the idea. I did forget to mention these come in 3 colors: white, yellow, and green. White is the softest, yellow is the medium, and green being the most coarse. You do not want to use green on aluminum. Green is for steel. It's best to be doing this with white, but I've never ever had an issue with using yellow, and it's generally lasts the longest. I've got the cylinder heads and the valve covers all torqued on. I did move on to the oil pan, and I've had this tube of Ultra Gray for years. It's probably maybe up to about here now, and it literally keeps on drying out at the end. But as long as I stab through it with a screwdriver, I can always get to some better stuff deeper in. I had enough to do this oil pan. So it's the next thing going on. And then basically left for today, I'm going to torque on that coolant crossover, the water pump, and put in a new thermostat. And I think I'll end it there for today. Just to give you an idea what the weather looks like here today, it was raining twice as hard about a half an hour ago or so. It's sure nice to have a garage. And that brings us up to the present. So I do have the oil pan is fully installed. Had enough of that RTV to seal up that nicely. I've gone ahead and put on some of the pulleys, and tensioner loose. I did put in a new thermostat. The water pump's all tight. The crossover's all tight. Really, I'm just waiting for one idler to come so I can get the belt back on. I've got another idler to put on the bottom, which is relatively newer bearing. I've got these rear pieces of the timing cover on. This pulley's on loose. Dipstick tubes in. Oil filler necks on. And I've kind of just decided I would leave it like this until I get that pulley. I'll get the belt on, and then it'll literally just be the manifolds after that. I'm going to put it into the car without the intake manifold, so I've left this bolt ready to pull out. And then I'm ready to hook up here with the engine leveler, and then I can drop it into the car and put the intake on while it's in the car. Now, I probably should have changed these while the heads were still off, because you never know if you run into a problem, but regardless, I took them out now, and I've discovered that this thing was probably knocking for a lot longer than what most people realize. The plugs, all these 3 are completely worn out. They're about 50 thousandths of an inch. And number 3, which was our problem cylinder with the knock, has about 43 thou. So it really hasn't been doing anything for a very long time. And this has been powered by 3 cylinders for who knows how long. So yeah, I just gotta wait for that idler to get here, and then I can get the timing belt on, get the engine back into the car, bolt up the exhaust and intake, plug everything in, fluids after that, and see if this thing makes any noise and how it runs. Past that, I've got brakes coming for the car as well, front and rear, so probably make a couple videos out of that. And yeah, so if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.